For the first time in weeks, the palace was quiet. The morning sun filtered through the high windows, painting golden squares on the marble floor. Servants moved carefully, speaking in hushed tones. Guards stood at attention not from fear, but from pride. The scent of jasmine and fresh rain drifted in from the gardens that Amira had ordered reopened to the public, a symbol that Erumu's gates would never again be closed to its own people. But beneath that peace, a strange unease whispered through the air. It was the kind of calm that comes after lightning, too still, too watchful. Amira stood at the balcony overlooking the city. From there she could see the new temple roof glimmering in the distance, its sacred flame burning tall once more. She should have felt comforted. Instead, she felt something else, a pull, deep in her chest, as if something beyond the horizon was calling her name. Mornike found her there, a parchment in her hand. "Another letter from the archivists," she said. "They've uncovered something unusual in the old royal crypt." Amira turned. "Unusual?" "A sealed chamber. Hidden behind the tomb of Queen Alyafunk." Amira's heart skipped. "Show me." The hidden door. The crypt of Erumu lay beneath the oldest wing of the palace, a maze of carved stone corridors where generations of rulers rested in silence. The air was thick with incense and history. Torchlight danced across inscriptions etched hundreds of years before. They stopped before the sarcophagus of Queen Alyafunk, the barren queen whose desperate prayer had founded the dynasty. Behind it, part of the wall looked smoother than the rest. Kunnel, who had accompanied them, ran his hand along the stone until he found a small indentation shaped like a palm. "A lock," he said. Amira pressed her hand to it. The wall shuddered softly, then slid open, revealing a narrow passage filled with dust and darkness. They stepped inside. At the end of the passage lay a small chamber, no larger than a prayer room. A single pedestal stood in the center, holding an iron box wrapped in decayed cloth. Symbols of sun and moon were etched on its lid. Mornike bent to examine it. "This is old magic," she said quietly. "Older than Erumu itself." Amira touched the seal and felt a jolt, a pulse that ran through her veins like fire. The box opened on its own. Inside lay a scroll bound with golden thread. They unrolled it carefully. The script was faded but clear, written in the ancient tongue of the ancestors. On the night of the barren queen's tears, the gods demanded more than devotion. They demanded continuity. From that night forth, the life of every ruler shall be tied to the life of the one who raised them. As long as the heart of the giver beats, the throne shall endure. When the giver's heart ceases, the crown shall seek another host. Amira's fingers trembled as she read the words aloud. Mornike's voice was barely a whisper. "The one who raised them. Amira, do you understand? This means..." "Adesewa," Amira breathed. "My mother. The barren woman who raised a queen." Kunnel frowned. "But she died long before the coronation." "No," Amira said slowly, realization dawning in her eyes. "She didn't die. She vanished. Her grave was empty." The Queen Mother lied. The torchlight flickered. Dust fell from the ceiling like ash. The scroll's edges began to glow faintly, the gold thread turning red, as if it recognized her blood. "The life of the ruler shall be tied to the life of the one who raised them." Her heart raced. If my mother still lives, then so does the bond. The hunt for Adesewa. That night, Amira summoned her council. "For years, we believed my foster mother perished in the fire at the orphanage," she said. "But the scroll reveals otherwise. She is alive or her spirit is trapped. Until we find her, this kingdom's peace is fragile." Chief Adewole looked uneasy. "Your Majesty, searching for the dead may anger the ancestors again." "Then let them be angry," Amira replied. "A queen must know the heart that gives her crown life." She dispatched scouts across the land, north to the mountains, east to the river settlements, even to the border towns where fugitives and forgotten souls wandered. Weeks passed. Rumors trickled in whispers of a woman with eyes like Amira's, living alone in a deserted convent far from the capital. Amira rode there herself. The convent stood on a cliffside overlooking the roaring sea. The waves crashed against the rocks below, sending up sprays of salt and foam. The nuns who lived there bowed deeply when Amira arrived, surprised but honored. "There is an old woman," the abbess said. "She came here many years ago. Never speaks her name. We thought her a wanderer. She spends her days by the sea, watching the horizon." Amira followed the narrow path down to the shore. The wind was fierce, whipping her cloak around her. And there, seated on a flat rock, staring at the sunset, was an old woman wrapped in white cloth. Amira's breath caught. Something in the curve of her shoulders, the tilt of her head, it was familiar. "Mother," she called softly. The woman turned. Her eyes, deep, gentle, filled with pain and love, met Amira's. A faint smile broke across her wrinkled face. "So," she said, voice trembling, "the child of my prayers found her crown." Amira fell to her knees before her, tears spilling freely. "You're alive, all these years." Adesewa reached out, her hand frail but steady, resting it on Amira's cheek. "Alive, yes. But I have been dying slowly, for the curse does not let go. When you took the crown, my heart began to fade. Then I'll break it," Amira vowed. "No curse will take you from me again." Adesewa shook her head gently. "Some bonds are not meant to be broken, my child. They are meant to be honored." The waves crashed harder, as if echoing her words. The mother's confession. As night fell, they sat by a small fire inside the convent. Adesewa spoke slowly, her voice quivering but clear. "The Queen Mother took you from me when you were only a baby. She told the kingdom you were her daughter. But you were never hers. You came to me as a gift from the gods, the answer to a barren woman's prayer. The gods made me promise that when you reached womanhood, I would let you go. They said your destiny would be greater than mine." Amira's throat tightened. "You watched me all these years?" "From the shadows," Adesewa said. "I was there when you spoke your first word. I was there the night of your coronation, hidden among the crowd. And when the palace fell into fire, I prayed to the gods to spare you. They listened, but they took my strength in return." She coughed, her hand trembling. Blood stained her lips. Amira gripped her shoulders. "No. You will live." "No, my child," Adesewa whispered. "The bond must be fulfilled. As my heart still beats, you reign. When it stops, you will face what comes next." Tears blurred Amira's sight. "Then I will never let it stop." "You cannot command time," Adesewa said softly, smiling. "But you can make it mean something." The Queen's return. 2 days later, Amira returned to the palace. She ordered that the convent be placed under royal protection and that no harm should ever come to its inhabitants. Then she locked herself in the royal chapel and prayed, not to the gods of old, but to the woman who had raised her. Her words echoed through the chamber. "If my reign must end when hers does, then let my deeds be worthy of her love." The candles flickered, and for a moment, the scent of jasmine filled the room, the same scent that had always surrounded Adesewa. Amira closed her eyes, letting it wash over her like a blessing. But that night, as the moon rose high, the flame of the temple flickered once more. The guards on duty swore they heard the sound of a heart slowing, steady, slower, slower still. Far away, on the edge of the sea, Adesewa looked up at the stars, smiled faintly, and whispered a final prayer. "Guide her, my gods. My queen. My daughter." Then the wind carried her last breath into the dark. In the palace, Amira awoke with a start, her chest heavy, her pulse slowing in rhythm with another heartbeat fading far away. She clutched her crown, tears spilling down her face. "Mother!" The palace bells tolled before dawn. A sound that had not been heard in generations, deep, mournful, echoing across every street and corridor of Erumu. Servants froze mid-task. Guards looked toward the tower in confusion. And in the queen's chambers, Amira stood barefoot before her mirror, clutching her chest. The connection she had felt since childhood, that strange warmth under her ribs, that invisible heartbeat echoing her own, was gone. Completely gone. She didn't need a messenger to tell her. "She's gone," Amira whispered. The words cracked as they left her lips. Her crown slipped from her fingers and struck the floor, rolling across the marble like a whisper of thunder. When Mornike burst into the room, Amira was on her knees, trembling, her breath shallow. Her eyes, normally fierce and commanding, were empty. "Your Majesty!" Mornike cried, rushing to her side. "What's happened?" Amira tried to speak but only managed a single sentence. "My mother's heart has stopped." And then, before anyone could catch her, the queen collapsed. For 3 days and nights, Queen Amira lay unconscious. The royal healers surrounded her bed, murmuring incantations, administering potions, even calling on ancient priests from the northern mountains. But nothing worked. Her pulse was there, faint, fading, and synchronized with something unseen. "She breathes," one healer said, "but her spirit is elsewhere. She is walking between worlds." Kunal refused to leave her side. He hadn't eaten, hadn't spoken much, his armor lay discarded on the floor beside him. Mornike kept lighting incense, whispering prayers. The air was thick with desperation. And all across the kingdom, the same thing was happening. Livestock lay still, the palace gardens wilted overnight, and strange crimson clouds gathered above the royal hill. The people began to whisper again, the bond of the barren woman. The curse of the first queen. Amira opened her eyes into a world she did not recognize. It was dark, not empty, but alive with silver mist and echoes. The sky shimmered with 1,000 ghostly lights, and beneath her feet was a river of mirrors, each showing flashes of her past, her childhood, her coronation, her mother's smile. "Where am I?" she whispered. "Between life and legacy," a voice answered. She turned, and there stood Adesewa, radiant, no longer frail or weak. Her skin glowed like the dawn, her white cloth flowing like mist. Amira's knees gave way. "Mother!" Adesewa caught her in her arms, holding her tight. "You shouldn't be here, my child." "I came for you," Amira said. "I can't live without you." Adesewa smiled sadly. "That's not what mothers raise daughters to do. I gave you life so you could continue it, not end it when mine ends." Amira shook her head. "The scroll said our lives are bound." "Yes," Adesewa said softly. "But every bond can be redefined by sacrifice. The choice of the bloodline." From the mist rose another figure, tall, regal, wearing a golden mask. It was Queen Alufunk, the first ruler of Erumu, the woman whose tears had created the dynasty. "You carry my crown," she said, her voice like thunder and honey. "You are the last of our pact. And the pact demands payment." "Then take me," Amira said fiercely. "Let my mother live." Queen Alufunk's masked face tilted slightly. "You misunderstand. The bond is not of life and death, but of purpose. A ruler without sacrifice is hollow. A queen without loss cannot reign." Amira's heart pounded. "Then what must I do?" The old queen extended her hand, revealing 2 glowing orbs, one red, one gold. "The red returns your mother's life but costs your throne. The gold preserves your reign but seals her spirit forever. Choose wisely, for both hearts cannot beat in the same realm again." Amira stared at the 2 lights. Her entire body trembled. In her mind, she saw her mother's face, the orphanage, the love, the prayers. And then she saw her people, the kingdom she had promised to protect, still fragile, still finding hope. She reached out. And her fingers brushed the golden light. Adesewa gasped softly. "You would sacrifice me again?" Tears streamed down Amira's face. "No, mother. I'm sacrificing myself. Because I will live with this emptiness every single day, and carry you with me in every breath. That's the heavier price." She turned to the first queen. "Let my mother rest, and let me reign in pain. Let my crown be her memory." Queen Alufunk nodded slowly. "Then so it shall be. The bond is broken, but the love remains." The lights vanished. And Amira fell into darkness. The awakening. When her eyes opened again, sunlight poured into the chamber. Mornike gasped. "She's awake. The queen is awake." Amira sat up slowly. Her pulse was steady now. Her body was warm. But something inside her had changed. She felt hollow yet strong. The bond was gone, but in its place was a fire she had never known. "Your Majesty," Kunal said softly, kneeling beside her, "we feared you'd never return." Amira looked past him toward the open window. The crimson clouds had vanished. The air was clear. Far away, over the sea, the wind shifted, carrying the faintest whisper of her mother's voice. "Live, my queen. Live well." A single tear slid down her cheek. "Prepare the council," she said quietly. "We have a kingdom to rebuild." Days later, the city gathered in the grand square. Drums thundered. Bells rang. Flowers filled the air. Queen Amira appeared on the palace balcony, regal, radiant, but with eyes that carried the weight of 1,000 lifetimes. She addressed her people. "The gods tested us. They took the one who gave me life, but in her honor, I will give life back to you all. No more will a barren woman be called cursed in this land. No more will a mother's worth be measured by birth alone. From this day, every heart that loves, every hand that nurtures, is royal." The crowd erupted. Even the skies seemed to weep, not with sorrow this time, but with cleansing rain. And in the temple, the eternal flame, which had flickered and dimmed, burst back to life, glowing higher than ever before. The bond was broken. But the legacy had just begun. The weeks that followed Adesewa's passing were peaceful, too peaceful. The palace buzzed with celebration. Trade returned, festivals lit the city streets, and Queen Amira's decree honoring all barren women turned Erumu into a symbol of hope across the continent. But under the shining surface, something began to shift. At first, it was small things, whispers in the corridors, candles that flickered without wind, and guards who swore they saw a woman in white walking the gardens at night. Then came the night of the Festival of Light. The festival was a night of music and unity. Fireworks lit the skies. Children ran through the streets with glowing lanterns, and Amira smiled for the first time in months. But just as the royal musicians began to play the anthem, a guard rushed into the courtyard, breathless, trembling. "Your Majesty," he gasped, there's someone at the palace gate. She says her name is Adesewa." The music stopped. The queen froze. "That name is forbidden to be spoken in vain," said Mornike sharply. "No one dares to." "She insists," the guard said, voice shaking. "She bears your mother's ring, the one buried with her." Amira rose slowly from her throne. "Bring her." Moments later, the gates of the palace creaked open. The crowd parted as a woman in a long white gown entered, her face hidden beneath a hood, her steps graceful and unhurried. When she reached the queen, she lifted her head. The crowd gasped. She looked exactly like Adesewa, not older, not younger. Her eyes, her voice, even the small scar near her brow, they were identical. Amira's knees weakened. "It can't be." "You called, my daughter," the woman said, smiling faintly. "And the gods sent me back." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some bowed. Others fled in fear. Mornike clutched her amulet. "Spirits should not return," she whispered. "And yet," the woman said softly, "love can make even gods reconsider." Amira stepped forward. "If you are truly my mother, prove it." The woman's gaze softened. "When you were 5, you feared thunder. You would crawl under my shawl and hum the river song until you fell asleep. I told you the thunder was just the gods dancing. You said, then I hope they dance forever." Amira's eyes widened. Only she knew that. The woman touched her cheek. "Then believe." That night, the palace was alive with confusion. Mornike and the council begged Amira to keep her distance. Kunal doubled the guards around her chambers. But Amira couldn't resist. The woman, whoever she was, had her mother's voice, her warmth, her scent. When they dined privately, Amira stared at her for long minutes, searching for something unnatural, a shadow, a trick, a lie. "Why now?" she asked finally. "Why come back after peace returned?" The woman smiled. "Because peace is a seed, my child. It grows, but weeds always follow." "Then what are you?" Amira whispered. A ghost? A messenger? The woman leaned closer. A guide. Something in her tone made Amira's skin crawl. Her eyes, once so soft, seemed to shimmer gold for a fleeting second. 3 days later, lightning struck the royal temple out of a clear sky. The eternal flame, which had never gone out since Amira's vow, died completely. The priests rushed to relight it. But no spark held. The smoke curled into strange shapes, like faces screaming, before vanishing into the night. And every night after that, the white-clad woman stood by the queen's window, humming the old river lullaby. Kunal confronted Amira in secret. Your Majesty, that woman brings darkness wherever she walks. The guards say their dreams are haunted with whispers. Even the horses shy away from her. You must send her away. Amira turned from the window. Her face was pale but calm. She saved me once, she said. If she means harm now, I must find out why. Desperate for answers, Amira sought out the High Oracle, a blind seer who lived in the mountains beyond Erumu. The oracle received her in a cave of glowing crystals. Her voice was like wind over stone. You have brought back something that should never have crossed the veil, she said without turning. The bond you broke has found its own balance. You cannot end what was once divine, only shift its form. Who is she? Amira asked. Is she my mother reborn? The oracle smiled faintly. She is what remains when love defies death. Then she reached into the glowing pool beside her and pulled out a small, handheld mirror made of obsidian. Look into this when she sleeps. The truth will show you not what she claims to be, but what she is. That night, when the palace had fallen silent, Amira crept into the guest chambers where the woman slept. Moonlight poured through the curtains. The white-clad figure lay still, peaceful, too peaceful. Amira held the obsidian mirror above her face and whispered the oracle's words. The mirror darkened. Then, slowly, the woman's reflection changed. Her skin turned gray. Her eyes glowed gold. And from her back, thin, black tendrils began to rise like smoke. Amira gasped, dropping the mirror. It shattered into pieces, and the woman's eyes flew open. Curiosity, she said in a cold, echoing voice, has always been your weakness. Before Amira could scream, the figure rose from the bed, her face still Adesewa's, but twisted, cruel, inhuman. You broke the pact, my daughter. Now I have come to collect what was left undone. Every window in the palace burst open at once. Wind howled through the corridors. Candles died. Guards stumbled as shadows coiled around their ankles. The woman floated above the ground, her gown whipping like a storm cloud. The bloodline must balance, she thundered. A barren woman cannot give life without taking it back. Amira stood firm, though her heart raced. You are not my mother, she said fiercely. You're the curse that haunted her. The spirit's laughter echoed through every hall. Perhaps. But you carry her heart. And her heart belongs to me. And with a gesture, the air split, revealing a dark portal pulsing with light. Mornike and Kunal burst into the chamber just in time to see the queen dragged toward it. Amira! Mornike screamed. The queen's last words before vanishing into the void were a whisper only Kunal heard. Tell them, love isn't what binds us. It's what saves us. Then she was gone.